All right, guys. Look, I'm gonna keep this short. I'm not gonna go into the details of Tank's domestic situation. If you guys don't know, um, Jake Paul and Tank Davis is officially canceled. Right, this fight was supposed to happen on Netflix, in a couple weeks, and it's over because Tank got into some sort of domestic situation. Again, I don't report on that stuff no more. That's dead. I've done it with Tank in the past and other fighters. But whatever people got going on in their personal life, I'm not really going to address it unless it's affecting an upcoming fight. Now, I did make a video about this fight. Again, at the end of the day, like I've said before, I'm not. I don't have a big problem with the Jake Paul fight. I really don't. And I say as long as it's not affecting boxing as a whole, as long as I'm getting the fights that we deserve as a boxing fan that we want, I don't really care what the exhibition people are doing. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, who's gonna turn down Netflix money? You know, um, all of this stuff with fighters and what they choose to do. At the end of the day, make your money. Like when I see fans and the reaction and the media and stuff like that, at the end of the day, make your money. As a fan of boxing, I want the best fights for sure. But if Netflix calls you for a fight, you take that fight. If Turkey Al Sheik calls you for a fight, let's be real, you're gonna take the fight because there's so much money in it. You know what I mean? And I know legacy is a big thing, and me as a fan and a consumer of the sport, I want what's best for me. But as a fighter, you should want what's best for yourself. And when it comes to Tank, my thing is, I don't want to see a Jake Paul fight. I don't want to see this fight, and I don't want Jake Paul to be fighting a lightweight. When he's fought at heavyweight and cruiserweight. I don't want him fighting lightweights. I don't care how good they are as a lightweight. I do not want to see it. But I understand that there's some sort of curiosity there because you're fighting an elite boxer that is much smaller than you, and you're much bigger, and you're not really like considered an elite boxer. You know what I mean? But he could fight. Jake could fight. Um, but whatever, get your money. But listen, I didn't really make the video to talk about that. Um, Tank Davis, and I've said this in previous video. Like, look, this is the way I look at Tank. Yo, as a fighter, I love watching his fights. I love watching Tank. Like as a fighter, I think he's a great fighter. You know what I mean? I enjoy watching his fights. But as a fan of Tank, he has not delivered any fights that I really, really want. He has not fought any of his rivals. The only one that I would say that he fought was Ryan Garcia, but I thought he was the weakest out of the group of guys that he could have fought. I wanted to see Loma. All right. I thought when he beat Pedraza, I wanted it at that point. He didn't fight Loma. He never fought Loma. And I know he tried to make a fight with him at the end of Loma's career, but it should have happened years ago. I thought Tank was good enough to fight Loma back then, and it just never happened, right? But then you had the new guys like Tiafimo, Shakur, and Devin Haney, for example. Uh, those guys are his rivals to me. You know what I mean? These guys have sparring stories together. You know what I mean? Like a lot of some of the stuff is on videos on YouTube. Like to not fight any of those guys is unacceptable to me. You know, uh, he's fought good fighters, but they were some, like even like the Lamont Roach situation. It was just a cherry pick that going wrong. No disrespect to Lamont, because I like Lamont Roach. I do. I really do like Lamont Roach. He's cool. And I've made content on him for years now. But at the end of the day, it was a cherry pick going wrong. As a boxing fan of Tank Davis, as far as fan of what he does in the ring, nothing else. Whatever he does outside of the ring, that's some other shit. But as a fan of watching his fights, he's been disappointing. He has not delivered for me the fights that I wanted. you know. When I watch him though, I love seeing what I see. Um, but since the Pedraza fight, I have not really gotten that full excitement for a fight. I did really like the Frank. I did like the Frank Martin fight. But the majority of them, they have not lived up. Like the Tio, or Shakur or Devin Haney. Those are the fights I really had wanted to see, and I never got to see those fights. And every time he talked on it or spoke on it, it was always some bullshit excuse, whether it was him, whether it was his coach. Everybody used the PBC thing and, business, this, that, and the third, you know, just to get none of those fights. It was kind of disappointing to me. And um, now when I look at Tank in this situation, now that the fight is canceled, and basing on Jake Paul's statement, or there's an interview out there that's floating around where he talked on it, spoke on it a little bit, and he's saying that he's addressed some of the details from this domestic incident, and like again, like I'm trying to wonder now, like yo, is Tank really done? Because you burn bridges with Netflix, you burn bridges with Turkey Al Sheikh and the Saudis. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you're always gonna get a fight with the PBC, but like is it over? You know what I mean? Like I don't think it's over. I think he's going to continue fighting. But he's been talking about retirement, and if you was going to retire off this bag, you're not going to get another bag like this just fighting on Amazon Prime with the PBC, or with a direct promoter. I just don't think that you're going to get that amount of money if you're not working with Netflix, if you're not working with Turkey Al Sheikh. And not only that, but no one is going to risk investing into you now after this, because you already had been through all of this stuff. You already got your chances with your other incidents that you had, the hit and run incident and all the other domestic incidents. There's so many of them now. It's like, damn, I see people arguing back and forth about whether or not he's innocent, and you know, uh, guilty into proven innocent into proven guilty and all that. There's people that's on the internet defending him, and I'm like, yeah, but this has been a pattern situation, and this is another fight canceled at the end of the day. Like, he's always gonna be able to get a fight, but to get that huge bag where you can just walk off into the sun and just be done, I think that might be over. Him fighting and him getting a smaller bag or getting the bags that he's been getting up to this point is possible. But getting that super bag where someone's gonna say, yo, we're willing to pay you, you know, two, three, four times the amount of your highest purse ever, and you walking away with that purse, that might be over. Because it's like, how do you invest in Tank Davis when anything can happen with him at any time? You know, like he's a little loony. Like, whatever the situation. If you like Tank, just you got to be real with yourself. He's a little loony, and can't keep looking at him like a victim, man. He's not a victim at the end of the day. At this point, he's not a victim. It's him. We can't we got to start like really really learning how to take accountability, man. This victim mentality shit is a disease. It's a sickness, and we got to get away from that. And when it comes to Tank, I get it. He's came from the bottom. He hasn't come from much. He's from Baltimore. Listen, I've been to Baltimore a few times. Like, I know what it's like. I've seen it. But at the end of the day, he's not a victim, man. And we can't keep giving him a pass for making these mistakes. But as far as his career, when he is able to fight again, the Lamont Roach fight is not going down now because Lamont Roach already has a scheduled fight with Pitbull Cruz. If Lamont is to beat Cruz, or if Cruz is to beat a Lamont, he can rematch one of those two. You know what I mean? Because both those two are the two toughest fights he's had in his career. So I'm expecting him to fight the winner But is he gonna leave the game and walk away from the game off that win? I don't know, because whatever that bag is gonna be, I don't think that's gonna be the same kind of bag that he was about to get from Netflix. So overall, man, I'm looking at it like this, yo, because I'm gonna keep this short. Overall, the way I'm looking at it is he's gonna fight the winner of those two that's coming up in December, Lamont Roach or Pitbull Cruz. He's gonna fight the winner of that fight. All right, and if he is to win that fight, you know, I think at this point he might entertain a Shakur or Haney. He's gonna have to take a risk in order to get that bag or close to that Netflix bag. If he's gonna get it from anyone, I still think that he might have screwed himself with all the people that's willing to pay the big bucks. But in order for him to get that ultimate check, he's gonna have to make a risk and take one of these fights with one of these guys, and it still might not happen. But if it's gonna happen, I don't think it's gonna be coming off of a exhibition type fight or another cherry pick type fight. Just my personal opinion. Overall, it's hard to really rate him. I think he's one of the best in the game, but it's hard to really rate him because everybody he fights is carefully selected. You gotta be honest. Like, as a fan, you gotta be honest. That's all I'm gonna keep. It's a lot more that I could say, but you know, again, I'm trying not to get too much into people's personal business like that. We've seen this plenty of times, uh, over and over with certain fighters. Uh, he has way more potential than what he's done. But at the end of the day, this is his story. This is his life. And I don't think he can have this life and be where he's at today without all the controversy. I think it just doesn't work that way with certain fighters. It is what it is. Anyway, I'm gonna leave it like that, man. I just wanted to talk really quickly about this. I'll see you guys on the next one. Please subscribe to the channel. Peace.